Are you interested in a 3 to 6% VO2 max improvement in a relatively inexpensive way from the comfort of your own home without massive heating bills, and also hemoglobin increase that you would get from altitude training? Research and science now proves that you can get really big bang for buck by doing indoor heat training from the comfort of your home, which is similar to going to altitude. Let's go. This is all about how to get started. I'm going to give you some important tips to understand before, which is all about hyperhydration, what I've learned from my hydration knowledge, bring it into indoor heat training. It's a 5-week intro, beginner stage if you like, just to get yourself familiar with heat strain index, the training load. Seeing yourself adapt over a period of 5 weeks is quite cool. And when in the year to do this. Okay, so I think this is really key. I recently have been affiliated with Core Sensor, and I will be giving some advice around heat training, and most importantly to you guys watching. Okay, first things first, 90 minutes before you start a session that you know you're going to sweat more than normal and intensely because you're going to be fans off, you need to do what we call a preload, but you hyperhydrate essentially. And now it's really important to understand that you don't just do this with water, because that leads to hyponatremia, which is low blood sodium. So it's a high concentrated sodium drink. I use pH 1500 in 500 mils of water 90 minutes before, because you need time for the blood plasma volume to increase, okay? It's not instant like sugar. If you're an average sweater and an average salt concentrated person, don't worry, you don't need to know how to know if you're average. We'll give you some guides. That'll be sufficient amount of volume of fluid. If you're a heavy sweating 85 kilogram male, for example, higher body mass, you will sweat a lot more, greater than 1.5 liters per hour of working out. That's what we consider a high sweater. So you probably want to look at taking the same concentration, but doubling it into a liter. So first things first, do a pre-weigh. This morning I was 76.7, dry. The plan is to take note after the period of time you've ridden, say an hour, what your post-weight was, and that helps with the post-hydration, which I'll get to. First point of call, you want to try at least replace 50% of your losses during the session with sodium drink. Okay, that can be of your choice. I use Precision 1000 because that matches my sweat sodium rate as close as possible. You don't have to be drawn to that particular product, but important to use sodium drink. If it is an intensity session, which we get into in week 3, 4, you will need carbohydrates with that. Okay, if you're a high sweat rate, you're gonna have to aim to drink 100% of your losses. How do you know how much you lose? We've done some pre-testing before on a normal turbo ride with fans on, and you know your losses. Okay, I'm gonna include a link, how to measure your sweat rate, in the description, and it's really simple, you just need scales. Post-session, once you measure your weight, you want to aim to replace straight away 50% of your total losses from the starting weight. That's including all you already drunk, and you'll see there's quite a big difference. And then later through the day, you want to carry on drinking water to adequately hydrate so you can start again tomorrow. Week 1, think of it as a precursor to your main heat training. We're not going to go head first and dive into some really uncomfortable work. You're going to spend 4 sessions in week 1, and they're all going to be relatively easy, dressed in normal clothing, even with your shirt off, so you're not getting super hot. However, in the last 15 minutes, you're going to add a lot more clothing. So for 4 days out of in your first week, people ask me how long should I do? Try and frame it as this. You want to try and get a few key parameters. So here on the app, you can see you've got a heat strain called temperature, 38, and you've got a skin temperature at 34.5. Your ideal in the first week is to try and get your skin temperatures just above 33.5, which I've done here. I've been riding for 20 minutes, 30 minutes here. And your heat strain index, you want to get between 1 and 2. So the way Core Sensor works, it takes your skin temperature, which is the sensor on your body, it determines your internal core body temperature, and it gives a key metric, which is crucial to understand. Heat strain is a metric that measures your thermoregulation of the body to cool yourself down. So heat strain of 0 is very low, going up to 7, which is extremely high strain on the body. Okay, so in the beginning stages, we're only going to really hit 1 to 2 in heat strain, and that starts to add to your overall heat training load through the next 5 weeks, which we're going to talk more about. The things you need is a heart rate monitor. You can see mine's at 120 right now, and you have to obviously have the sensor attached to your body at all times. Remember, week 1, we are aiming for about 4 sessions, 45 to 60 minutes in duration. The goal of it is to get your heat strain index up to between 1 and 2. Okay, so the intensity level needs to be steady, easy. Zone 2, your power, if you're biking, will drop to match that heart rate. That's key. Same if you're running on a treadmill, you're gonna have to drop the intensity effort down to keep your heart rate down. I spoke about the last 15 minutes, adding layers. So let's go back to the beginning. Just wearing my normal clothes, my bibs, and a t-shirt or a thermal layer. You then added cycle jersey. This is a key point. I've got a rain jacket, not breathable, long sleeve, to trap the heat in. Skin temperature needs to go up to increase your core temperature, hence my beanie, to then give us the response of a heat strain index. I've then put a thermal layer over the top ski type jumper to then even trap the heat more, which is very uncomfortable. Something I've not done in my past years. I've just gotten warm with the air temperature up to 35 degrees and you sweat buckets. So this is the other way of doing it without heating your room up. So you can see my heart rate now, I am talking, it's got up to 140. It was about 130 when I was riding in zone 2, which is about 10 to 15 beats higher than normal for the same effort. So week 2, you're interested in now. This is the actual beginning really of your heat training. Week 1 was just an intro to get you used to being a little bit uncomfortable, higher sweat rate, the body going, are we suddenly in the Caribbean? Week 2, 3 1-hour sessions. Your first session is going to be the final 20 minutes. And what we after there, the goal is to now get your heat strain index by the end of the 20 minutes to a 3 to a 4. So that's your body's, remember, your metric, your thermoregulatory strain of trying to keep you cool. The second session of the week is 25 minutes at the end, and you guessed it, the third session is 30 minutes at the end. Okay, here's a little trick if you've stayed around this long. Post-session, when you stop, all you want to do is rip your clothes off. You need to remain dressed for a further 10 minutes. And you'll find your sweat rate keeps going up, and actually your thermoregulation will kick in and you'll still be getting adaptations. And just observe what's happening until your heat strain drops below 2, and take off all your clothes and measure your sweat rate again. You need to observe the sweat rates because over a period of a few weeks, you'll find your sweat rate reduces for that hour, and that's you adapting. But remember what I said in the beginning, this type of work, treadmill, biking, actually helps you in cold conditions as well, which personally I never knew as a coach 5 years ago. I thought it was just for the hot climate. That's a key point. Week 3, we're gonna ramp up the heat. Yes, we're finally getting there. It's 3 sessions in week 3, but we're gonna start bringing in some intensity into the bike to get your core temperature above 38.5 degrees in real time. So what does that look like? It's doing the first 30 minutes underdressed intensity threshold work, which will take about that duration to get your core temperature up. The final 30 minutes, you are going to overdress. The intensity we're gonna have to drop down 100%. Your heart rate's gonna be in zone 2 to 3 with a heat strain of 3 to 5. Okay, you're gonna try and maintain that 3 to 5 heat strain index that you've built up, that you in essence banked from working hard in the first 30 minutes. And you're gonna hand the fans off for 30 minutes, okay? And you're gonna just stay overdressed. Post, you're gonna keep wearing your clothing until your heat strain drops below 2. Could be take 10 minutes, 12 minutes, might even take 20 minutes. Your goal for that session is to get a heat training load now, because remember in week 3, so that's what heat training load is. It starts to accumulate and the body starts to recognize that there's a response, okay? And that is a 4 to a 6. And that's all shown in your lovely little app that's real-time updated. And if you have a coach, they can be added to your app as well, and they can see the session you've done. The second session of the week, okay, in that third week, is you're gonna do a full 60 minutes with your heat clothes on. Okay, all in zone 2 steady. This is actually where I used to do mine straight away, back in a few years ago for Kona prep, but I would do it in a heated room. Okay, you need to increase the output if it's basically too easy for you and your heat strain is less than 2. You always wanna try to get a response in the session, otherwise you're just not actually working quite hard enough. Your third session is you either repeat session number 1 or session number 2, whichever you fancy is the worst of the two evils. We're into week 4 now, and right into the thick of getting heat adapted. So your goal at the end of week 4 is to be at least 50% heat adapted. Now you're asking, how do I know this? There's a good calculation, and the algorithm on the app will help you accumulate the heat strain index over the last few weeks. And if you stick around as well, I'll tell you how you can add your passive heat as well and record that, because we all like sauna. So it's 3 workouts in week 4. And you just choose a workout from week 3. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's still 60 minutes, but your goal is to spend at least 40 to 50 minutes in a heat strain of 4 to 6. So that might mean you start overdressed and immediately you get hot in zone 2. It might mean you're fitter than the next person, and you might need to do some intervals to get your core temperature up and your skin temperature. That's quite individual. By the end of the workout, you'll know you stop the workout when you're at a load of 5. Again, you wear your clothes afterwards until the heat strain index drops down to below 2. All right, your second session can be a choice. It can be, again, zone 2, 60 minutes. You just repeat what you did, because now you're building the heat adaptation, okay? And the same for the third session. 60 minutes is fine. If you need to push it longer to get that heat score, that heat strain above 4, that dictates how long to stay. I generally wouldn't say, as a coach, stay longer than 75 minutes. Dressed like this, the amount of volume of fluid that you lose is pretty radical, and we're into the liters. I know I was losing 2 liters an hour of fluid. And make sure in your bottles there's electrolytes in there, sodium, because if you just drink loads of water and you're sweating, you will become hyponatremic, which is very dangerous, and low blood sodium. Week 5. Now, it's all about timing in your season. You can either decide if you want to maintain your heat adaptation or you want to further increase it. Depends where you are. As this video is coming out, November, December, it's probably a great time to continue furthering your heat adaptation, because that's when you get those hemoglobin increases and those 3, 4, 5% increases in your VO₂ max. It doesn't just happen overnight, all right? Now, to maintain, you'll do 2 to 3 heat sessions per week of what we discussed in week 4, for example. And your goal is just to try and get a load of 4 for each session. However, if you want to push it further, you want to repeat week 4, okay, to become a bit more of a heat champion, like they say, and you can maintain this for about 3 weeks, and that'll give you that increase of 3 to 6% of the VO₂ max, your performance in hot environments and cold environments. All right, so if you continue with those workloads in the next 2 to 3 weeks that you did in week 4, you'll become a bit of a heat champion, and you will see on the app your acclimation and how high you are in the score relative to being heat adapted. And once you're there, you just stick back into your maintain phase and dip in and out. Remember, all these sessions are very highly corrosive on the body from a sweat rate perspective. So as soon as you've finished, start thinking about rehydrating, keep your clothes on to bring the sweat rate back to normal, and your heat strain index will slowly come down. But then it's a really good time to, once you've dried off, weighed yourself, looked at your losses, is to then post-hydrate with another 1500 milligram effervescent concentration pill in water, 500 mils, to bring your blood plasma back up, because the excessive loss is really quite significant, and more so if you're a heavy sweater. So I just wanted a reminder. And then what you can do as the weeks go by now you're in week 5, and this was just one session, but you can see the app's pretty good. There I got a 5 or 6% heat adaptation from that one session I've just started, and you've got the active, which is exactly what I've been doing. But I wanted to tell you about the passive, because I'm a big fan of adding sauna to my repertoire of training, and it'll just ask you a little bit of details about yourself. But here you can bring in hot tubs. Some of you have infrared. I use a traditional sauna, and you want to then continue, and you want to bring it up and tell them how long you were in the sauna for, because you can't wear your sensor in there or your heart rate monitor. Okay, and you log that, and it'll give you a heat strain and will add to your overall training load through the week. I think that's really a cool feature that wasn't around in the Core 1 when I was using it. There you have it, a really fairly straightforward 5-week protocol if you're interested in some easy free gains. I'm going to put the links in the description to their website, because they explain a little bit more about the science with references, which I didn't go into, which I think is really useful, certainly for some people watching this. They'll want a little bit more backed up science and verification. Yes, we know a lot of the pros are using it. Feel free to reach out, comment below, but I'll leave the links in and just get started. I think that I urge you to. All you need is a heart rate monitor and a core sensor too. I wouldn't buy the first one. The advancements have been so much better, and I'll see you in the hot races.